Alright, so I was thinking of reacting to some video, how personality affects what you play. Firstly, I will kind of like tell my personality. I'm the type of guy I like artistry of games like Bloodborne, Elden Ring, but I also like to relax sometimes. Like, I am competitive. I play Mortal Kombat, Marvel Rivals, Paladins, stuff like that, but sometimes I just want to relax. Sometimes I want to relax. I play, let's say, Elden Ring for the 1,000th time, or I replay a story game, So sometimes I just want to relax. So I'm curious what he has to say. What kind of criteria
Turns
do
out
I
this
fit?
video is actually pretty easy to write. In 2016, Dr. Jeremiah Appleton and his
I
team
was
ran
a
a study where
toddler
they would have
in
gamers fill out surveys
2016.
regarding their personality. They
Yeah.
would agree or disagree with statements like, I have a colorful imagination when I'm alone.
Let me answer these. Yes, very colorful, and like I actually write like actual like novels. I enjoy like writing characters and stuff like
I
that.
enjoy the company.
I do enjoy the company of others, but I don't know about like all the time. Like I see a lot of people that are extroverts and they're like, oh my god, I am depressed because I don't hang out with people. I am the happiest when I don't hang out with people.
Of others, I worry I am not accomplishing enough, or I feel the need to win even if it hurts.
I worry if I am not accomplishing enough. Nah, not really. I don't give a fuck. If it weren't for like monetary like stuff, like I wouldn't care. Like I've been posting stuff for like almost 5 years now, and ever since I was little, I was posting on YouTube, and I never got any recognition for it. I don't care. I'm still gonna post. I still love posting. I feel the need to win, even if it hurts someone else's. Nah, I don't give a fuck about winning, and I don't give a fuck about people's feelings.
Someone else's feelings, etc., etc. All statements you can feel free to answer quietly to yourself if you like. Dr. Appleton then had the subjects report what video game genres they enjoyed the most.
That's Resident
And in
Evil on
most
the right.
cases,
Hades
subjects that
down, I
typically
think.
enjoyed JRPGs had more quiet, reserved personalities and often had serious doubts as to whether they had made the right decision.
The fuck is a JRPG? Japanese role-playing game. Okay.
Or done the right thing in games.
So Final
and
Fantasy,
in life.
basically.
Those that
Yeah.
typically enjoyed platformers and more fast-paced games
And they're
like
all-
Doom often had a strong tendency to be critical of themselves. Fans of puzzle games like Tetris or Hue prefer
Doom, critical of themselves. Let me think. Why would that be? I guess because they're violent and they're like directing self-hatred towards like outside hatred. That's my.
a certain amount of change and variety in their everyday
I hate
lives,
these kinds of games
and
so
become
much. I'm
dissatisfied
sorry.
when
Like,
governed by restrictions and
I know people like
limitations.
them, but
The same goes for fans of Minecraft and other open-world sandbox games who also specifically have personalities that lend themselves to a great need for other people to like and admire them.
I do really love Minecraft and crafting stuff, and I like being admired, but it's not like I crave it. Like I'm not actively craving it. Like you know.
And if you're finding these statements to feel accurate of your own gaming preferences and personality, quit that, because every
Yeah.
word of what I just said
It's bullshit.
was made up, including that first line. This video is a
Oh
royal
my
bitch
God.
to make.
Bro, this is such a good video.
How does our personality affect what games we prefer playing? It's a damn good question, and one that has been investigated by people much.
To be honest, I was skeptical. I was like, why would people that are critical of themselves like Doom? But I fell for it. I fell for it. I'm gonna be honest.
Than me. But before we dive into this, I'd like to make a couple of disclaimers and a couple of examples.
Yeah.
Out of you. I didn't set that whole opening thing
Out
up
of
just
me?
to
Oh
screw
my
with you,
God.
although I didn't necessarily
Yeah.
not enjoy doing that. I did it to point out that personality psych is a slippery slope. If you
Yeah.
happen to victim to the Barnum effect, which is how
Barnum.
psychics
Hold on, because my Barnum effect. A common psychological phenomenon whereby individuals give high accuracy ratings to descriptions of their personalities that supposedly are tailored specifically. Of course, it's not the whole. Specifically to them, yet which are in fact vague in general. Yeah, this is like the horoscope. So if you notice, like a lot of these girls that are like, like astrology girls, and it's like, of course, they're the hot ones because like they are like, yes, sweetheart, yes, we match, our zodiac signs match. but but it's like for like the ones that aren't like the ones that aren't as pretty, they aren't into horoscope as much, but still, it's like you will have great gain in your life if you're a Leo this month. And it's like they get like a slight raise probably, and they're like, yes, it was right. The horoscope is real. It's like Leos are really prideful and they like to take pride in what they're doing and they're confident. Yeah, like every fucking person on this earth, we are all selfish.
And horoscope writers stay in business.
Exactly.
Ambiguous statements that can be true
Bro.
of pretty much anyone when presented specifically to you about you
Yeah.
can very easily begin to feel true. Pair that with a little bit of confirmation bias, and suddenly everything we
I
talk
love
about
this
today
movie
may
so
lead
much
you to
when I was
believe that
little.
you are an incredibly creative person just
Yeah.
because you put more hours into Persona 5 than your entire undergrad degree. I'm not.
Okay, I am creative. Like, look, I have an actual sketchbook here. This is what I did yesterday. I have lots of stuff. Let me think of what to show. Like, like I do draw. Like I do a lot of drawing, but still I cannot show them. Like, look. Oopsie. I'm sorry. That was my mic. Look, you see? I am creative. I also write. You know, so that was kind of like
Not judging.
I do
that's
not
a
fit this
self-burn,
criteria.
But I just want you to be aware. Watch your footing on this video and take it with a grain of salt. All right, enough disclaimers. Let's dive into the tremendously fascinating world of personality. One more thing though, sorry. You should know that personality is not the most rock solid field inside.
I should use that with the DVD.
Like, there are measures developed to try and
I think personality is like sometimes every time that I try to categorize myself after a few hours, I find that it was wrong. So, and I'm not bipolar, I swear to God. It's like sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to talk to anybody. And then I'm like talking to my bro and I'm like, oh my God, this is so enjoyable, you know? So I don't like to make like statements that are like stample this on your forehead. This is what you are, you know? You are X, Y, and Z, you know? No, you are like a living human is like on a spectrum. Imagine like the color, the color things, you know, with the more colors, or like you have red, blue, red, blue around here, green, yellow, and it's like every time you're kind of like morph in that. But of course, there's like an overall like spectrum where you belong. So if you're a heavy introvert, you will be, let's say you're a blue. If you're an introvert, you will be around in this spectrum. Sometimes you venture towards the purples, but you won't really venture too far, you know. And as for the extroverts, they're like yellow and orange, and it's like here. Sometimes they venture towards the greens, where it's more like not as warm, so like this staying indoors or stuff like that. But it's like a spectrum. You don't have like, very rarely you have a person that is like yellow or blue, you know. Like, this is like a weird analogy. I hope you get
capture
it.
our personalities, but between the changing of age and the changing of culture around us, who we are is ever shifting.
Okay, I'm gonna give a hot take. Like, culture is like, I don't like that we've shifted talking about culture to like being this like instead of culture being like, oh, this is like a nice thing that these people do, it's like, oh, this is like this forbidden subject that is like, whenever somebody states it, it's like you do not touch it, you know, like you do not criticize, you do not mess with it. Like, for example, I'm Romanian, and we have like in a few villages we have this like cultural thing where you like basically kidnap the bride. You like take her and you run off with her, and you have to gift the family something. So this is like a old like now the people that are doing it aren't actually kidnapping their wife. This is like something like sweet that but think about this, like if this was culture, like they did it back in the day, like can you imagine, like you cannot criticize kidnapping women and basically making a transaction with their father to like buy them. Like, I'm sorry, bro.
Also, most research tends to be correlational, so what we're talking about today is tendencies and a snapshot of what we think we know, not laws. So again, grain of salt,
you will never know
and its intersection
perfectly.
with game preference.
With people you never, even in twin like studies, you know.
If I asked you to give me a breakdown of your favorite types of games to play, you'd probably
are these three like very artistry and very gameplay oriented. So let's say I like to for it to be visually beautiful, like I like it to be appealing, but I also like the gameplay to feel good. So let's say Elden Ring. Elden Ring is visually beautiful, but it has to be like enjoyable to play. Let's say I played World of Warcraft for my entire life. World of Warcraft is incredibly beautiful, especially for its time, like WoW Classic. So it has to be beautiful, and I like to, when I play the game, I like to relax a lot of times. So even when I'm playing Marvel Rivals, like I don't like to play like Psylocke because I have to be focused. Turned on. You have to actively aim. I like to play like something like Rocket or Mantis, where I just click and I just heal them and I just stand back. I don't like to be like wired. Like, oh, what am I supposed to do? Sometimes I do focus. So don't get me wrong, but I prefer to be like more laid back.
Start by telling me some genres. You might even rattle off some titles. You put a lot of time into Ghost Runner. Maybe you get cheap thrills and fast-paced games like that in Mirror's Edge. Oh, you and your friends are still playing Animal Crossing. That's I respect it.
I never
You might
played
enjoy
Animal
the
Crossing.
sensation of dunking on your friends, or maybe your dreams
I
are
love
just a
Mortal
little bit
Kombat.
too peaceful and you like to go out of your way to ruin that whole thing. Maybe you tell me you like getting
I love
absorbed in a
Ghost of
story like
Tsushima.
something seen in Xenoblade or Tsushima.
In
Maybe your
Tsushima, I
pants
loved
get
it for
tighter
like
when you shave off a few
artistic,
seconds
like
of
as you
before
saw,
speed run, or when
I'm an actual artist. So whenever I was playing Ghost of Tsushima, I was like now draw like 10 times a day. Like this is like actually contributing to my artistic vision. So
you finally unlock that
hold on,
last
let me
support for
just.
Dorothea. A fellow fan of the opera, I see. No matter your personal syllabus of
I hated
titles or
Hollow Knight.
ways to
I
play
don't like
said titles, we
2D
can measure
Metroidvania.
genre preference. But if I asked you to give me a breakdown of your personality, you'd probably talk in more circles than your buddy
Yeah,
trying to get you to
exactly.
invest in Dogecoin.
Spectrum, as I said,
It's
with the color.
hard to get a true read on personality, but psychologists have come up with a few methods. And the one we'll be using today is the Big
Bro,
Five
this is so good
personality
editing,
traits
bro. I swear to
developed by
God, this
Lewis
took like
Goldberg.
a month.
The Big Five
probably.
traits are sort of the most accepted, replicable, and used
I-
measure
I-
in the world of psych today.
Oh my
and each
God,
trait
bro.
essentially
Even
works
the
on a
fading,
sliding
oh my
scale,
God.
with most people falling somewhere in
This
the
guy is
middle.
good.
Generally, personalities don't sit at the extremes, just
As I
closer
said.
to one end. Remember, we're ever changing. We'll dive more deeply into each individual trait as we get to some of the bigger points of the video.
I'm sorry, I
But just
did
as
my
an example,
manual.
openness, to wildly oversimplify it, refers to our willingness and desire to seek out / think about new things. People with high openness tend to be very creative, enjoy trying
High openness. I might disagree a little bit. I see where his perspective is coming from, and I see how it would be like a great correlation, but I don't think it's quite openness. I think it's more of like having something to say. It's like the Dostoevsky quote, where it's like, "How can you live and not have a story to tell?" Like a lot of people that are creative, like live more basically. Like when they suffer more. When they're happy, they are happy more. And they're more conscientious about like stuff that is going on around them. So I do see where this is like this open approach where it's coming from, because it's like you're more open to the world and you're more open to giving your perspective on it. So I don't know. I don't like to like this is 50 or 60% of like true, like a correlation, but I don't think it's 100%. But I know this is kind
new
of true.
things, are extremely curious, and are happy with change.
Extremely, I
Those with
wouldn't
low
say.
openness
Or change,
despise change. You
Like how many people, how many artists do you see on Twitter that are like you see them berating, like, oh my God, like this is like these people are like Nazis, and it's like, what? And it's like you click on their profile picture, oh, artist and stuff like that, and it's like all of the time they're complaining about art block and not being good enough and stuff like that. Like if you are open and heavily curious, like you would already have the skills and the perspective to not talk this much shit. But this is like this is more of an exception, so I can see.
You won't catch them rearranging their room or changing their schedule much. They don't like new, and they don't like abstract ideas. Conscientiousness sort of deals with how organized you are. Do you pay attention to detail and strategize, or act on?
In conscientious, I don't think it's kind of like that. So I'm curious, what's the actual? How the fuck do I write this? A personal moral sense of right and wrong, viewed as acting as quite as guide to one's behavior. So when I talk about conscientious, I I like to like picture it as like the voice in your head that is like, I don't mean like the actual voice is like, stop, take your medications. But what I mean is like that voice in your head that is like, oh, like, let's put this for an example. You're on a diet, which I clearly am not. I am, but I'm trying. I'm doing better. So anyway, it's like you see this cookie, and your conscientious, if you have high conscientious, it will tell you don't eat this cookie because it will fuck you up in the long term. People with low conscientious are like cookie, so they are more impulsive, basically.
On a whim. Agreeableness refers to our interest in others. Are we empathetic and helpful, or are we self-serving?
I think you can be empathetic and helpful without being agreeable. So, for example, my brother, like, he's very helpful. He's very like empathetic towards the people that are close to him. So he's like not quite empathetic, but he's always trying to help you, But I can see why people don't like him because he's kind of an asshole with how he says it, If you think like people like Asmongold are assholes, you should meet my brother. Like you will think that Asmongold is a sweetheart after that. So, tending to want to help people, I don't think is correlated to agreeability. Agreeability, I think, is correlated to having not a lot of confidence, not a huge spine, basically, because you are not willing to say the stuff that you think that the people will most likely not agree with, or a majority of people will agree with you, but there will be a minority that will be like, no, you're wrong, or you're so stupid for thinking this. Highly agreeable people often are the people that either don't say a lot, or when they say like generally like no shit Sherlock kind of stuff.
And oblivious.
I love this scene from Spider-Man.
Neuroticism deals with emotional stability and
neuroticism. Let's look that up. Neuroticism is a personality trait associated with negative emotions. It is one of the big 5 traits. Individuals with high scores on neuroticism are more likely than average to experience such feelings as anxiety, worry. So basically a normal human being. Okay.
And how you handle stress, and I think you're already familiar with extroversion. At our core, we all land somewhere on each of these 5 scales. Maybe you're pretty low on the extroversion scale, but you are highly agreeable, so you really empathize with people, therefore you might enjoy a good
so you don't like to talk
story, but don't care much for partaking in real-world human interaction. As an introvert, I can relate to you. Maybe you're highly conscientious.
I never like this like labeling yourself, because like 1 week I want to go out, and then I'm like, okay, I had like my share of like going out this month, and then 3 weeks I don't go out and I just shut myself in and I just draw or like write or stuff like that, or make this.
So you love
right now I'm in that
and strategize, but due to your neuroticism, you often get stressed when you have to make a tough decision. Maybe you over prepare for that mission or get choice paralysis when trying to decide on an outfit.
God, this game is so like...
This is all my speculation, by the way. I'm just trying to give you an idea of how your personality might affect how you approach titles. Luckily, though, we don't have to speculate much. There has been some remarkable work done here by one Dr. Nick.
Action, social aspect. Yeah, I do like a lot of competitive like stuff. I do love fantasy and design, yeah, and the excitement. So it's like I love all of them, except achievement and immersion. But sometimes I'm also like, and mastery. I love mastery, but not in games. I don't want, like, I used to be like that type of person. I used to play a lot, but nowadays I'm more like, bro, like when I play Mortal Kombat, like why the fuck would I learn to play against these campers, camping with fishing rod and tent, when I could just draw, contribute to something that may lead to a career one day. So it's like Mortal Kombat will definitely not lead to a career. Like there is the possibility that it might, but still.
In 2015, Yi and his team gathered data from over 140,000 gamers using their homegrown gamer motivation profile, which you can still take now if you like, and I recommend you do at some point. It's really eye-opening and fun. Link in the description. Pop it open in a new tab and take it after you finish this. From this data, they found that gamers typically play due to a combination of any of these 12 motivations. You might play to stretch your creative muscles, you might play to get wrapped up in a story or to feel like you're someone else. Some folks do it for the challenge, some folks do it for the power trip, many of you crave the community and the competition, and some of us just like to blow shit up. Likely though, we are all some combination of any of these. People are rarely so one-dimensional. And since most people exhibit multiple of these motivations when playing games, Yi and his colleagues used a little technique called multidimensional scaling for the data, which maps out the correlation between these variables.
This is gonna sound weird, but why does this matter? Like, if you are a video game developer and if you're a player, like, don't look for stuff like this. Look for, how can I put this? Let's give Elden Ring for an example. Elden Ring doesn't appeals to a lot of those like things, but it could appear to challenge, competition, community. If you're like in the, so it's like a lot of stuff. Community not so much, but still. The reason why Elden Ring is successful is not because it appeals to a lot of people's personalities. It's just because it's a good game. So I think that the focus should be just make a good product, and you will get a lot of people. And this is like proven by people like by games like Black Myth Wukong, Metaphor ReFantasia, Witcher 3, Wild Hunt, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, stuff like that. So make a good game, you will get a lot of sales.
If two motivations are more correlated, they are put closer together, whereas motivations that are less correlated are placed farther apart. Meaning, since these two dots are close to each other, if you are really into gaming for destruction, you are likely also into it for excitement, but less likely to be into it for strategy. When you take a look at the full map from the data...
Let's see that. Fantasy story, this is me, right here. But I also like this. So I don't know. Look, this, and a little bit of this. But I don't know, like, look, like this is but I get it, because it's like, I'm really in here, but I also like to nibble in this, but I don't like to do it all the time. So this is accurate.
You get a better idea of what motivations are related.
In strategy, I can see how people that are more I can see how people that are more strategic like to complete more. It's like that OCD stereotype, with intelligent people that like fix everything,
fall into one of these
and like
clusters,
like Dexter.
or maybe even dip your toes into two of them, which is exactly what Yi and his team noticed. There were three higher level structures, three primary types of players that most motivation correlations fall under. Action social, which combines the love of fast-paced gameplay with player interaction. Immersion creativity, which combines the interest in stories, player expression, and exploration. And mastery achievement, which mixes the appeal of strategic gameplay, tough challenges, and chasing achievement. The discovery and power motivations are tricky. They don't really fit in just one cluster, and according to Yi, they sort of act as bridges between the three major groups. Meaning, if you identify with the immersion creativity cluster and the mastery achievement cluster, discovery likely really appeals to you. Now keep in mind, this is simply motivations we're talking about, not how personality affects them. But what's fascinating is that much like the big five personality traits, the gamer motivations mapping is consistent across several different regions and cultures.
Let me read that.
Which could suggest that gaming motivations and personality are both in some ways universal for all of us, and furthermore could be related in some sort of consistent manner. As I was reading up on this...
Yeah, I think you can get like a 50 to 60% consistency, which is majority. Like, as I said, like a lot of times, like, let's say for me, I was in that big like creativity part, but I also nibbled in like the challenge, So it's like... it's like it's like a good principle.
I realized that all that was left to do was find proof of this relationship. And as I embarked on this noble quest into the sweaty, migraine-inducing DMV that is Google Scholar and try to find some research that could connect.
I do also like a bit of strategy and like planning. Like I'm like, if you watched Overlord, like this is how I played the Elden Ring DLC. I was like Ein Zulgon, like I was like that guy. Whenever I was entering a fight, I was like the most prepared for it, and it's like a lot of people like to build skill. I also did a separate one where I learned without high level, without a lot of weapons and stuff like that. I beat Mezor and stuff like that. No summons, no nothing. But I also beat it with like basically like I'm Ein Zulgon. I'm like prepared, like I will demolish this boss. I enter this room, I am the boss, I also like that fantasy of like being like making a contingency plan, like you're Batman, like beating these bosses, so I like that too. So I kind of nibble in all three, but a bit, like mostly the left bottom one.
I was surprised to find that Dr. Yi had already broken ground on that research, making my job a lot easier. God bless this man. Only a few weeks later, the good people over at Quantic gathered data from the gamers who filled out their gamer motivation profile and a Big 5 personality test. They then analyzed the correlations between the participants' offline personality traits and their gaming motivations. Pretty much what I made up in the beginning of this video, but this time...
What I'm curious is, how did they take these tests? You know, how do they go through the, like, it said like 100,000, what was it? 140,000 gamers. Like, how do they funnel and like filter this much information?
Connor.
Like,
they actually did this and did it correctly. And what they found was statistically significant correlations, meaningful connections that, based on the sample size, did not happen by chance. They stumbled upon the invisible strings that connect who we are to the experiences we love.
That was
the
so
Action
good.
Social Cluster, which contains the high motivations of excitement, competition, and community, were largely connected to high levels of extroversion. Now, extroversion is usually characterized by people as being outgoing or being good around others.
Probably.
The research supports that it's more accurately characterized by excitability.
Oh my god, is that Kazuya?
Cravings of excitement, and needing energy in social situations. Not necessarily being good in them, but gaining something from it, even if it's simply competition or attention. Consider this. You don't have to like people to be an extrovert, and yet you may still gain something from being around them. So you may very well choose to pick up fighting games because your extroversion makes you crave the competition, just as well as you may play action adventures for the constant excitement, or MMOs and social sims because you do actually like the people in your life and get something meaningful from kind interaction with others. Another correlation they found was between openness.
Whenever they added delves to World of Warcraft, I was like, oh, thank God. And then I stopped playing because I was like, I'm forcing myself to play. Like, it was annoying to do delves at a certain point. Like, the mobs were barely dying. I had to pull, like, I felt like in classic WoW hardcore, like I have to pull like 3 or 4 mobs, and if I pull more, I die. And he's like, oh.
And the Immersion Creativity Cluster. RPGs, sandboxes, open worlds, anything with a creativity cluster. RPGs, sandboxes.
No, it's not Command and Conquer. I was like, but it looks like it.
Open worlds, anything with a deep immersive story or a way to express creativity. Most players that enjoy these games tended to have high levels of openness, which, like we discussed earlier, is characterized by imagination and creativity. Folks high in this tend to have a broad range of interests, enjoy change, and are open to new and varied experiences. Which may explain why these people can finish JRPGs even after weird interactions like,
you know, this is how I earn a living.
Huh? Really? I thought you were just doing it for fun.
I suppose some people do.
Hello, I'm some people. Nice to meet you.
I joke, but this is 100% me. I'm here for the story, and I don't care how weird things get. I'd be willing to bet that the Undertale fan base is full of high openness people because, again, the trait is all about painting outside the lines, which is probably why it also correlates highly to the enjoyment of sandboxes like Minecraft and games with hefty customization like
I easily have
World. Conscientiousness was slightly mapped to the Mastery Achievement cluster, which makes sense. Highly conscientious folks are preparers, strategizers, task-oriented schedule followers that likely find challenging strategy games like Advance Wars and XCOM to be just the right scritch to their itch. The correlation here wasn't as strong as the others, but it may shine a little light on the type of people that enjoy finding all of the achievements. Again, that highly conscientious detail and task-oriented nature probably lends itself to finding some pleasure in unlocking all the achievements and getting all of the collectibles. Okay. I'm gonna come up for air now. That was a lot of big words. Couple things to note. The correlations.
Yeah, I am genuinely impressed with the thing. Like, I would have stumbled or like messed up the talking just like 5 to 6 times. I would, by the 7th take, I would already be raging. It would be like, I would be like mad, you know. And then I would mess up another word, then I would be like very mad.
Here are significant, and they were insightful, but they aren't exactly high, meaning that this only gives us a glimpse into what is usually the case, but is certainly not universal truths. After all, you may be the most detail-oriented, conscientious person on Earth, and yet hate playing strategy games because your personality ruins them. Maybe they just come off as a chore and you have too many of those in real life, so you'd rather unwind with something relaxing. Like I said earlier.
Yeah, like sometimes it's like I see a lot of people that are like watching dramas and it's like, or like murder stuff, you know. And then I'm like, why would you watch something so like gruesome? Like, is life not hard enough? Like, you know. But then I watch Dexter, and it's like, okay, You know, I like the crime stuff. You know, I like the I love Seven, for example. I loved Prisoners. I love like movies like that, and I do love like the detective kind of stuff. It depends on the kind of like stuff, basically. But I don't really like drama. You know, I sometimes I do, but I don't really like drama. You know, depends on like my mood. As I said, spectrum. But uh, you know, I had to put like the show Dexter off a few times because it was like, bro, like I felt like I was in trouble, which is like incredible for like the writers. You know, like the writers did a great job. You know, but sometimes it was like too like it was making too much cortisol in my head. You know, like I have to put this shit down because I'm gonna stress. I'm stressing out over a show. You know, and then I watch people like Asmongold, which are like, this is just a show. Like, why do I care? They're like watching Goblin Slayer, and I'm like, bro. Whenever I see like what the goblins did to that girl, like I'm not gonna watch that shit. You know, I'm not gonna watch that shit because it's like, what's the point of putting that in there? Oh, it's like goblins. What do you think they will do? Yeah, sure, but like try to imply it. Don't make it blatant because I don't like it. You know, like if I wanna be stressed out, I will look at the real world. I will not look at fiction. You know, so it's like, of course, there are some exceptions to this, but this is a generality for me.
Earlier, fat grain of salt. If
And to every
episode 1 in
generality is an
psychology
exception,
studies
no?
have taught me
What the
anything,
fuck is
it's
that?
that
There's always a bigger fish.
and there is always an exception. But I do think
Yeah,
that there is a
exception.
lot of truth in these
To every generality, there is an exception. If you ever say every crocodile is green, somebody will be like, oh, actually, there is albino crocodile. Yeah, that's an exception, dumbass.
correlations. After all, if you're super introverted, you likely would enjoy playing alone. If you're high in openness, the stranger and more novel a world is, the more likely you are to really want to sink your teeth into it. Which, by the way, this kind of supports my personal theory of why when a new game trailer drops, you may find yourself going, not for me, whereas your buddy gets hype and just tosses it on their mountain of a backlog because they want to play it all. High openness is great and all, but if everything new is appealing, RIP to your buddy's wallet and free time. Or maybe you're the buddy. I'm the buddy. My backlog is bigger than my future. For what it's worth, my take on how who we are affects what we play has to do with personality reinforcement. We seek out not just
I see
games,
that.
but media in general that reflects our personality. Like Dr. Yi mentioned in the closing statements of this study, games are often stereotyped as escapist fantasies so that we can be who we're not. But we may in fact play them to better experience who we truly are, how we actually tick, and better understand our own identities. A few studies gathered in a meta-analysis by NCBI reveals that our music and television consumption is often for purposes of identity management, emotional regulation.
Am I not the only one that sees a lot of these like white kids in suburban neighborhoods, and it's like they're listening to King Von and it's like, Vaughn, got a drop on this, you know, and it's like they're listening to murder rap. I'm also one of those kids, but still they're listening to murder rap, you know, they're like singing to like Armed and Dangerous by King Von, you know, they're like putting Chief Keef on, and it's like, you have two loving parents, which are almost rich, you are wearing a good clothing, like what are you doing, you know, so it's like, that's the true personality, bro. Like, we're animals at our core, you know? Like, we as people, like, just a few hundred or 1,000 years ago, we were hunter-gatherers. And in terms of evolutionary, like, development, we still are hunter-gatherers in terms of evolution. Like, this is not how we, like, look, just as I'm standing right now, my back is starting to hurt. Yesterday, I was doing basically deadlifts. It's like an exercise that I did. My back wasn't hurting at all. The human body is meant to move. Whenever I'm sitting in the chair, I am feeling pain. Whenever I am moving, I am not feeling pain. So the human body is like meant to like basically be an animal, you know. So it's like their true personality will show. Like whenever you see like these people, like, oh my god, the GTA is making children violent. No, people are violent just inherently.
And companionship, especially in younger people, which leads me to believe that in a lot of ways, gaming may influence our personality
is so
in the
good,
same way personality affects our gaming. Personality may in fact be the original spark that triggers our interest,
Yep.
but I think over time they act upon each other back and forth. Games may serve as a mirror that reveals what we do and don't enjoy, and what we do and don't identify with, which, especially in our earlier years, might structure who we are. Personality often runs into the nature versus nurture debate, which is almost always both when it comes to most psychology topics. Genetics certainly plays a part in personality, as has
Genetics plays a huge part in everything. Like sometimes I like look at me and my brother, and I saw like this like Dr. Mike Israel was talking about this on the podcast with the other Dr. Mike. And it was like about high conscientious people, and it was like how much genetics affects this. And it's like with children, like you can have a child which is a psychopath, which is killing people like Dexter, and another one which is like a junkie, you know, or one that is like the president. So it's like so much is up to chance. Like sometimes I do think like, what if I was like, I don't know, born to other people, and I do think that I am who I am literally by chance. Like, you know, I'm grateful, but literally all of it is chance, you know? And this is why I don't like a lot of like racist people who are like, oh, I don't like this ethnicity, or like xenophobic and like homophobic people. Like, it's like, do you realize that the difference between you and that person is just like what you have on the screen, like just DNA? Like, do you realize that the difference between you and that person is just literal chance? Like, maybe, let's say souls exist. Maybe if your soul was held back by God for like 0.1 seconds, you would be like the person that you hate. You know, I don't really believe in souls, but I have to like put this into a perspective that you can understand, basically. So it's like, how can you be racist when the only thing, like, you haven't controlled what you are, you know? How can you be so stupid, you know? Or like sexist or like stuff like that, you know? Like, people are just moronic.
Been shown in studies with twins. In fact, based on this twin study, genetic influence on the big five traits were all estimated to be around 50%, which means that personality is likely half formed by our genes and half by our experiences.
This is very accurate. Let's say you have two people, both of them have an alcoholic father. One of them, just in spite of his father, doesn't drink at all, and the other one becomes an alcoholic. So, what is that? There's not a difference of experience, that's a difference in genetic, you know, who you were born, basically. And I do think that a lot of people are highly like incentivized from like
because you are highly
their genes.
extroverted.
For example, my genes highly make me be able to be addicted to alcohol. Like, I come from Romania. A lot of people here, like, there was nothing to do except have sex, fight, and drink. And every one of my grandfather, great-grandfather, father, you know, like, all of these people drank, you know? And it's like, for example, one of my great-grandfathers died because he was so drunk that he fell asleep in a ditch when it was snowing, and he literally freezed to death. That's how drunk he was. And my grandfather, you know, from my father's side, he was brought by like his friends with like the, what the fuck is that called? You know, like the things that people use in constructions where you like put the cement in, and it's like, it has two handles and what the fuck is it called? Anyway, in that thing, home, you know, and my grandma just looks the other way, but when my father like has like a bit of like a neck beard, like, oh my god, you are shaming our family, like, huh? You know, so it's like a lot of things are common that you wouldn't expect them to be common, you know?
But it may also be
Especially
because your first gaming experience as a kid
because of genetics.
was Melee.
They see it as common
It
since
may
they
not
see it
be
every
as
day.
black and white as your personality affecting what you play. It may go both ways. A couple of stray thoughts before we pull this video out of the oven. Age is also a huge factor. Some research presented in 2003 suggests that as
I told my brother, play God of War. You will like it. My brother told me, this shit is too difficult. I cannot even get past the like beginning mobs. And I was like, how the fuck can you not get past? Like, this is the guy that I used to give the controller to help me finish the game, you know? This is the guy, you know? And I asked him, were you on God of War, like difficulty? No, I was on normal. And I was like, how the fuck can you not finish? And then I realized my brother is just old now. My brother is just old now. I'm sorry for him. I'm sorry, but how the fuck can you not get past that, bro? He's just aging, and he would have loved this game when he was younger, but now, no way.
As we age, our personality shifts. Conscientiousness
Of
and
course.
agreeableness tends to go up through your 20s, and openness tends to decline.
Yeah,
Meaning for a
yeah,
lot of
exactly.
people,
That's called. Let me. What was it? What the fuck? Dr. K talked about it. Hold on, let me talk. Cognitive flexibility. I remembered.
you really
Cognitive
may find
flexibility.
yourself narrowing these
Uh,
genres.
think of your brain kind of like a plastic, you know. So when it's soft and warm, you know, when it's warm, it's softer. You can mold it easily. But whenever you get older, it gets colder, so you cannot mold it as easily. And instead of like molding to what you want it to be, it just breaks. So that's cognitive flexibility. That's what matters the most in rank, by the way.
Genres you play. Maybe not everything new will be quite as appealing, which I think kind of supports the whole notion of identity management and formation in your early years, though I could just be seeing what I want to see with that. There are also other models of gaming motivations than Yee's that you might want to consider. Bartle's player types, for example, plots you as one of 4 different player types, depending on if you tend to be
I'm not one of those.
more interested
Maybe
in the world versus
overall,
other
but
players and acting upon those things or
Yeah,
interacting
yeah.
with them. Jason Vanderberg's Domains of Play model may also be worth checking out. Ultimately, it is extremely difficult to pin down just what exactly the relationship between our personalities and our game preferences is. It could be something we just can't quite grasp yet, and the research I've gathered for you today only reveals the tip of the iceberg. Then again, it could all be white noise, grasping at the wind.
I don't know if you noticed. My fucking muscle in my thumb is sore, and I'm pressing it to like feel
Small
better.
tendencies that reveal more about what we think is true than what is actually the case. But what it most certainly is delicious food for thought. If you take away anything from this video, know that there is no right or wrong personality type, just like
Yeah.
there is no right or wrong game preference. We're all different and all seek what fulfills us. Above all, I hope that this research encourages you to make a diligent effort to understand your
There
personality
is no
and
right
not
or
try
wrong
to correct
personality.
it. It's often said that you should just be yourself, but I know from experience that's not such a simple task. I think a better piece of advice would be get to know yourself. Take the time to learn who you are, pay attention to what makes you smile, and don't be ashamed of it. Games have always helped me do that, and regardless of how your personality truly affects what you play, I think as long as you're enjoying yourself, it doesn't really matter, does it?
Okay, this was a good video. My takeaway is that this guy knows how to edit well. Let's subscribe. This guy knows how to edit really, really well. I think that individual people and individual personalities, this is my takeaway, my own opinion. Individual personalities are way too important for people nowadays. Like, how can I put this? Do not focus on a personality in a video game. Like, just make a good game. What would you enjoy to play? What it's the same for like writing, art, stuff like what would you enjoy to? You know, like whenever I draw something, I'm like, sometimes I draw for like other people, you know, other people. This is something that they would like, especially now since like I'm drawing a lot of more rival stuff. But most of the time, I'm doing something that if I was a different person and I saw it, I would be like, damn, that's so nice, you know? I'm doing it for myself. The same for like writing, the same. So do not try to focus outwardly. Try to focus inwardly and look outwardly for. So look to the other people for ways to express yourself, not actual expression of self. You know. So of course, everything is not rules that I'm saying. This is just generalities, which always you can break them. But I love the studies that he like quoted by the like Yee, you know, like YEE, you know, like the guy. It was really nice. I did love like the basically like the graph that he made, kind of like graph with the points. You know, I love that. I love that kind of stuff with visual like representations, graphs, stuff like that, because numbers don't lie. Numbers do not lie. Never. They never lie. So I love when people do this. This was a very, very good video. Daryl talks games. I like this guy a lot. Personality, Psycho F Play. What the fuck is that? Anyway, if my network wouldn't be acting up, I want to look at what other videos does he have. flawless sequences. This thumbnail is goated. Like, I'm telling you, like I make a lot of thumbnails. It's goated. This one is also goated, and this is goated too. But these, the other ones are like, this is goated too. Oh, this is so good. And this guy, top tier YouTuber. Check him out. Check him out. Subscribe, and I love this video.